Good morning. Good morning, good morning. Hello to everyone on Wednesday Wisdom. If you're watching on Women of Light Movement or watching the replay, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, whatever, whatever it is. And if you're watching on YouTube, because we've now got a YouTube channel, please just tick the bell at the bottom and notifications, and you'll get notified every time we put something on, which is every so often these days. And we have the beautiful Mary Wong here talking about communication and leadership. How are you going, Mary?
Yeah, I'm pretty good. Thanks, Elizabeth. How are you?
I'm good. I'm good. I was just telling you on my road trip, and I'm doing a Queensland tour. So I'm on the way back down to Maleny after being in Far North Queensland and doing an event down in Maroochydore. So
we have a very beautiful state. It's such a good place to go for a drive around, isn't it?
It is. Yeah, that's right. It's been fun. Like, I'm looking forward to my bed because it's been nearly 6 weeks. But
I think that's what I miss most when I'm away, is just your own bed.
Yeah.
Always good to get home.
It is. Yeah, I bought my own pillow, but the bed's is something that I'm going, yes, looking forward to that comfortable, soft bed.
Lovely. Lovely. As good as holidays are.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. And so, Mary, communication and leadership, so important, right?
It is. It is. The way that we introduce ourselves to the world is through our communication. It's through our words, it's through our written and our verbal communication. And we need to present that in a way that's perceived correctly, because if we, I'm just going to, so that the viewers understand, I'm just going to let you know I'm a little bit off my game today because I've just had flu and I'm on the recovery. So if I'm a little bit slow, that's why. But the way that
that's totally fine.
The way that we present ourselves to the world is through our words and through the way that we behave. But it's our words that reach out more than anybody else. I spend a lot of time public speaker training, and in public speaker training we always talk about the Moravian theory and how only 7% of what we say, of the words that we use, 7% of our believability is which words that we use. That's actually very misquoted. It is, the statistic is 7%, but the 7% is about if it's not in alignment with everything else, then only 7% believability comes from our words. And it's that 7% that makes the difference. If you think about how many people are in that leadership position, it's that 7% that make the difference for those people to get into that space and be seen as the leader in that space. So
absolutely.
It's really, it's such an important thing. It's the basis of foundation of all relationships that we have in life comes from the way that we communicate with people. And you would think that it'd be easy.
Well, it's really interesting that we're talking about this. One is that we're all leaders in some form, right? Like, we're all leading someone. So that's really important to remember. And the other part is that even in my time, before the internet even came along, I know in my family, we weren't personally trained to communicate in a clear, concise way. I was actually one of these kids that was put in my room while everyone else fought outside, and so conflict is a big thing for women, and just being able to express who we are, what we want, and why we want it is a really important, it's a skill that needs to develop. It's a learnt skill, right? It's not something that we come into this body and go, oh, well, I know how to communicate. I know how to verbal. But
it's like learning to walk, except it takes us longer. We learn to
Yeah.
talk. We learn to put words together and sentences together, but we don't learn that really in-depth method of using those sentences to make things work for us and around us until we're much older. And that's all partly because of the way that the brain matures as we grow. It takes time for all of those executive functions to really kick into place for us. You know, generally the executive functioning of the brain isn't fully developed until, you know, early to late 20s, depending on whether you're male or female. Males
absolutely,
they have, and this is proven, this is not sexist, it's proven that the male brain develops more slowly than the female brain in those areas. It develops faster in other areas, and that's all fine, because there's no right or wrong, just so learning to do that is something that takes time. And I had to laugh, I had to smile when you were saying, yes, I was the one that was told to be quiet in my room. I was the youngest of 6 kids. And
wow.
6 in 8 years. My mother was amazing.
Wow.
Yeah, can you imagine? She didn't drive. We lived in the country. She didn't drive. My mum's story is one where she didn't learn all of these communicational skills that we learn as you grow through your teenage years into young adulthood, because she had to go out to work. Her father died when she was very young, and she had to go out to work when she was 12 years old, and she looked after
wow.
Can you imagine that? Like, for us, it's incomprehensible.
No, I know, it was so hard. We often forget about that, about our parents, how hard it was in their generation. You know, that they had to suffer through a lot of stuff. Yeah.
Well, she went and, sorry, something dripped in my eye and it's really stinging. Sorry. She went to work for a disabled lady who was also somebody who hadn't been very communicative either. So mum never learnt those skills. She was in this position of powerlessness in a space where she didn't get to use her voice. She just had to do as she was told. And then when she married at, she was 26 when she married. Dad was 28. And that was quite old.
I was going to say, that's right. Yeah.
Because my mum...
Because it was usually, 20, 21, that age, You were having kids, 22,
That's right. So she was a lot older. And my parents were old parents. And we also had some other things that went on in the family. There was a family suicide. There were a whole lot of other things that happened when I was very young. And that brought across a whole lot of other issues that rose from that, with the stigma of suicide and the family being sort of...
And back then it was, don't talk about it, right?
Don't talk about it, but also, it's that family, that sort of thing goes in their family, because that's what happened. And so there was a lot of, don't talk to those people, don't associate with those people. So as children, we grew up not being spoken to, not learning the social graces, living in a remote area on the farm.
Anyway,
and with 6 kids under 8, we didn't go out very often. We'd go to the dances now and again, but we would be very strongly controlled, and you were, you sit down and you be quiet. There was none of the running around and things like that the other kids did. And so we didn't have those communication skills either. And my dad, bless him, didn't have great communication skills either. So for me, it was something I had to learn.
Yeah.
And that's the thing, that a lot of people get very anxious about having problems with communication, and they think it's because they're somehow inadequate. And they're not.
There's something wrong with them, right? Yeah. And isn't it interesting, just as a side note, how we sort of pick up from where our parents left off. Isn't it interesting that this is, having that sort of life, and then through that is caused you to have a passion about communication and leadership, so you went out there to discover it, like it's almost taking the baton.
I'm a big believer in predetermined pathways.
Absolutely.
I've been through a few different a few different careers, you could say. I started off, I was always going to be a nurse when I was a kid. So I became a nurse, I became a midwife, and then had this massive changeover to fashion. And I worked in bridal industry, and I was a bridal designer for many years, working with brides.
Oh, wow.
So, and then after I had my babies, and went back and studied counselling and then coaching. But I've been told over the years, when people have watched or people who've been on that journey with me, oh, Mary, you don't seem to be able to make up your mind about what you want to do. It's the next bright shiny thing. But what I've noticed is everything I've done has channeled into this point where
Absolutely.
I get to use all of those skills. So nursing, you've got to be able to have the hard conversations in nursing. Midwifery, the biggest shock to me about midwifery was, oh my gosh, they expect us to talk with women about sex.
Yeah, right.
Oh my God, how do we do that?
So was that something that you learnt
I had to learn
your course?
that. Yeah.
That's really interesting. I didn't know that.
Oh yeah. My first communications training started in what we call PNC, which was preliminary nursing course, which was the first 6-week intensive. We had communications training in there, right down to the basic stuff that back then it was a SOLER, solar, they used to say, which was sit square on, with an open posture, lean in, establish eye contact, and be relaxed. And interestingly,
that must have been challenging. If like, I know I've done some communication things myself, and as I said, I didn't understand communication very well at all, and so it's awkward to start with, right? So if you're, one of 6. You're the youngest, and you've got, okay, I'm going to lean in. I'm going to at first, whereas now it just comes naturally, right? It's part of it, and it just, it's
exactly.
interesting, isn't it?
When you first learn it, it feels like you're like, oh, come on, seriously, who breaks things down into such tiny little things? Come on, it just, we're just talking, aren't we?
Yeah.
But it really does make a difference if you take the time to position yourself properly. Now, we have since learned that sitting square on is a little more confronting. Yeah. And you're actually better at sitting side on rather than square on, because it lets people know you're by their side, giving them support rather than in their face, which can be quite daunting. And it is important with the body position to soften how you're coming across with people, to feel supported and to build that trust with them.
And so to bringing that into leadership, like, when we think of leadership, we think of, the business that you might run, or if you're in leadership at the workplace. But leadership can be being a mother, being a wife or a partner.
We are always leading someone. We don't realise how much influence we have on people around us. And there is always someone, even if you think there's not, there's always someone who's watching you going, oh, what are they doing? Why are they doing it that way?
Yeah.
How do I emulate what their behaviour is? How do I continue what they're doing?
And sometimes it's unconscious for them too, that they're actually even doing that. It's funny that we're talking about this. I said that before, but it's like I've just been at in Innisfail with with a family that's homeschooling. I just did an interview with them, and one of the things that one of the children said was they love it when I come up, because I'm one of the few people in their mothers' lives that talk and communicate with them. That most adults just see them as kids and don't talk to them, whereas I can have this major conversation with them and ask them questions that, like curious. I'm curious about their life, right?
Yeah. Curiosity is the best tool ever.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. And so it's really interesting, because we're bringing up the next generation. We're the leaders to, regardless of who, like here they are, kids of a friend of mine,
Mm-hmm.
you know, and if we're not including them in life, what's their life going to be like?
They're not going to learn.
That's right, because they're all
part of it.
I mean, these kids aren't, but those, you know, normally kids are in front of a screen. So communication is really, really crucial for this day and age if we're going to survive.
Yep.
As
and I will admit, I have two boys.
Yeah.
I have a 20-year-old and a 14-year-old, and they both are very happy sitting in front of their screen doing that. And I don't stop them from doing that, because there are skills that they learn doing that are very applicable to society these days and to workplaces. However, I also make sure we have times when we have tech-free. We have, okay, guys, we're going to have a tech-free event today. You know, we're going to have a tech-free afternoon or something, and we will, if we're stuck, conversation, I have conversation prompt cards.
I have a feeling you're going to say that. That's awesome.
They're so cool. I bought them online a long time ago. I think it's Best Self, I think I bought them from. And they are so cool, because they're all sorts of really interesting questions, like, you know, what job do you think won't exist in 5 years' time? Now, that sort of stuff's applicable to my kids. That sort of question. So that sort of made us all sit around and go, oh, what do you think wouldn't be there? And as a family, to really have this conversation.
Yeah.
Even, there's all sorts of different things. There's things that are society related. There's things that are entertainment related, like, you know, what's the biggest movie that you remember from your childhood, your biggest favourite kids' childhood movie? You know, all of those that really had an effect on you, and why did it have an effect? That's
great.
Questions like that just make you have a really good conversation.
And articulate.
And you know, I am the first person to admit that I am 100% human and every bit as fallible as everybody else. And in conversations, there's times when I go, oh God, what am I going to talk about? And that's when those cards come in handy.
Good. So communication prompt cards. Anyone that's listening, that's a great tip there. So, so Mary, if I've got people on here, I know that there's quite a few people on Women of Light that are in their own business and are in leadership positions at work, and lots of mothers. So, how do you work with people? What is it that you do in particular?
I mostly work one-on-one at the moment, only because I've pulled right back from doing all my workshops and things, partly because of COVID. But also because I'm in the process of writing a novel. So at the moment, I've pulled back to just doing one-on-ones, and I have a very limited number of clients that I work with at any given time. But I also have the opportunity for a free 15-minute phone call if you're stuck with something and you want to just have a chat around that and see what sort of help can be given. Always, you know, I'm sometimes refer people. I know lots of other people who work in this area. I have a conversational intelligence certification, which is specific to making sure that your conversations work for you in the way that you want them to work for you, so that you can take your conversations up to a higher level where they're not just a backward and forwards, they're a real meeting of the minds where you get to co-create.
That's fantastic. And it's more time efficient, isn't it, when you have that verbal focus?
And you can build on each other, but it also helps you to embrace when you don't agree, embrace disagreement and find the gift in the disagreement. There's so much about it that's really powerful. What I was going to say is I have other conversational intelligent practitioners who I can refer to. If I'm too busy, I can refer people to them. So
awesome.
Don't hold back going, she only takes a couple of people. I'm certainly happy to help out and happy to, you know, give you other information and other people that you can talk to if I'm...
Fantastic. And so once we finish this, if you can go into Women of Light and just add... have you got a Facebook group or something? Or
I do. My Facebook group is called Leaders on the Rise. and
awesome.
there. I also have a little scheduling thing that if you want to schedule 15 minutes, just go in there and schedule 15 minutes, and makes it much easier when you can do that, I think.
Yeah, that's right. So you can put the link in the comments below, and we'll put it into the YouTube one as well. So
sure.
That's excellent.
And I can put my website up as well, if you like.
Yeah, go for it. Put the whole lot so people can go and work out what they want to do. And I highly recommend, people think that communication is something that they can just deal with as they go along. And if that
was working for us, we wouldn't have wars, we wouldn't have arguments.
Yes.
We wouldn't have people abusing each other. We wouldn't have violence.
And we'd have more women being able to speak out and express who they choose to be, rather than feeling like they need to be submissive because they're concerned about sharing who they are.
Yeah. So sometimes because we're making an assumption that that's what's expected too.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
Assumptions are the biggest downfall in communication, is assumptions. If you assume something's going to be some way, it colours your response, it colours your words, it colours everything.
Absolutely. And that's the same when it comes to being curious about somebody else, right? What we were talking about before, assuming when someone says something that you understand what they're talking about. But you can have a great conversation with someone by, asking more questions. Just as an example, really quickly, the two girls that I was in the house with, one of them had just got new cupboard thing in her bedroom, and she was so excited about it. We went and had a look, and she was telling me how she had this old one, and she'd been trying to keep all the stuff in. It was all crowded, and it was starting to fall apart. And she said, and I put it up, and I stuck it to the wall. And I sort of looked at the wall, and I'm like looking at the thing, and I thought, how did she stick it to the wall, right? So I turned around and had a look, and I said, and she said, with sticky tape. And she said it didn't work, and I thought, yeah, of course it's not going to work. But I didn't assume. I kept on asking questions, right? So it's we had a laugh together about it, So it's really important not to assume, to ask questions. And so definitely jump on and have a 15-minute chat with Mary, because it's a really important thing, is communication, and how to voice your opinion and support other people as well. So thank you so much, Mary, for being on.
You're welcome.
And I hope you'll get better soon. So
it'll pass.
Yeah. Take care, hun.
Thanks for having me.
See everyone.
Bye, everyone.